What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Upstairs Conversation, a GSM podcast. We are here today with Jonathan Barker. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? How are you?
You good?
I'm good.
Nice, dude.
Got my coffee? I'm good.
Nice. Rolling.
Yeah.
We're also here with my lovely wife, Ashley Zavala. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
Good.
Great.
And I am Nick, and I'm actually really excited for this episode because Jonathan, how long ago did you do this?
It was about a month ago. Yeah, about a month ago. I asked the junior high kids in their small group times to just write out some questions that they would like to talk about, maybe on a Wednesday or on a Sunday or on our podcast. So
Yeah.
I've got some surprisingly good ones.
Nice. Questions about what specifically?
Questions about pretty much everything. So it ranges from some of them range from like faith-based questions to like how can I just be a better person, or
Which could also be faith-based.
yeah, or like how do I it's mostly about a lot of faith-based things, and so it's really interesting, just the heart and mind of some 7th and 8th graders that were even like thinking about this, because I know I wasn't in 7th and 8th grade, so it's pretty interesting.
I for sure wasn't either, but well, I'm excited. Well, let's dive into some of these questions, and we really didn't besides Jonathan, but I know Ashley and I didn't look at any of these questions ahead of time, and so kind of off the cuff answers and all that good stuff. So, all right.
Do I say some of the names that they have them on here? Maybe not.
No.
Maybe some of these.
Yeah, let's leave it anonymous. They'll know
All right, here we
if
go.
they watch or listen.
So, the first one, this is from a 7th grader, 7th grade guy, and one of the questions was how to prove God to non-believers.
Ooh.
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah, we're starting off strong.
Jeez. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just always hesitant when we're trying to like prove anything, because I don't know that that's our job to prove things. I think it's our job. Sorry, that was really sorry. I think it's more our job to pursue the Lord and live our life in a way that pursues the Lord, that it's obvious of his existence, but I don't know that it's our job as Christians, and I could be wrong, but I don't know that it's our job as Christians to try and prove anything to anyone. I don't know. That's just kind of where I fall on that one.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is also, like what you said, like living your life following Christ the way He's called you to. And I think, in Scripture, I think it's Jesus that says this, or Paul. It's one of those guys, but I'm pretty sure it's Jesus said it. Said like, and let your faith be your testament. Like, let your story be your testament, and let people see God through how you live your life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, maybe sometimes Christians feeling like, I'm really following the Spirit, and they're thinking about that one person in their life that I really want them to see God through my life, and they might not be seeing, like that person might not be equating their life with, I'm not seeing God in that person's life or whatever. And so you can get discouraged. You can be like, man, do I need to do more? Do I need to be a better Christian? And I think one of the hardest things about that question, a lot of it comes down to faith. It comes down to, what's God doing behind the scenes in the life of that person,
Yeah. And I also think that, like, take the word prove out of it, because maybe that's not what they meant per se, but like how to show
the presence of God.
Yeah. And I think the biggest tool that we have, besides obviously the living word, but personally, I think the biggest tool we have is our testimony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you can look somebody dead in the eyes and tell them how much Christ has changed your life, and if they knew you before and after, like, that's a huge, huge deal. And that's a really big point in the direction of, Christ.
Yeah, I always like that saying of live in a way that requires a gospel explanation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I go off of, especially with like questions like that, because it is hard to say. Like last night, we were talking about the Great Commission, and it's like live in a way like our job is not to save every single person. I think the stat on the that I had saw was about 36% of Americans don't believe in either that Jesus died and was resurrected, or are unsure about it. And so, because of that, that puts a big like onus on us as like believers to go out and spread the gospel, and whatever that looks like, whether it's a testimony, whether it's living that way. So, yeah,
I think it's a good reminder to think about your testimony and try and put it in like a 5 minute or less.
Yeah.
Because after 5 minutes, people kind of check out.
Yeah.
But a 5 minute or less little synopsis hitting the high points so that you were prepared in that moment to share your testimony.
Yeah, and I think 3 like easy questions to like answer in your testimony is my life before Christ, and then your encounter with Christ. Essentially, why did you come to Christ? And we all have the basic answer: we need a Savior. But I think there's a specific thing for each of us too.
Yeah.
And then the third question would be, what is God doing now in your life? And so that's a good question. Yeah.
There's people outside running around.
Children.
Yep. All right. Next one. How to be okay with letting go.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Yeah. This was from an eighth grade girl.
Okay.
So how to be okay with letting go of whatever that is, whether it's I assume it's a sin. So letting go of a certain sin. How do you move past that?
Well, I can just let you know that this is one that I still struggle with. And mine's not necessarily like, well, I guess, I mean, it is a sin because I'm not, trusting the Lord with these things. But I have a tendency to try and hold on and do things on my own still. And I know God's presence is there, but like waiting on him to do things sometimes seems like it's going to take too long or whatever, or thinking sometimes even I think that like what's going on isn't important enough to God, which is another lie. And it's really, really hard to let go and trust God until he makes you.
Yeah.
And a perfect example is the last time Nick got injured. It was one of those things that I was like, on the way there, I thought, I hope he doesn't get injured. Like I was just anxious about it the whole time. And then first situation, he gets injured and we have to go to the ER. And I was like, God, how am I supposed to trust you to take care of him? Because I can't be here every time. Like, how am I supposed to trust you if the one time that I come and I'm like, okay, God, I'm giving this to you, he gets injured on the first play? Like, under what circumstances this seemed like what I needed right now?
Yeah.
And his presence was just obviously calming, and just he allowed me to say the things that I was feeling and go through all the emotions. And then the next week was a week when I couldn't be there. 2 weeks later, because he had to let the stitches heal. And then
Classic.
Yeah.
and it was one of those things. I think I actually could have been there, but it was a still moment, like a very prayerful few weeks and conversations between the Lord and I of like, just let me have this. And he took care of him, and it was great.
Yeah. And I think like the letting go thing it's like a 2-part thing. Like the first step is like letting go of something, whether it's a sin, whether it's something that might not actually be like an official sin, like something bad, but there can be good things that we never let go of and then give to God. And that thing, whether it be good, still ends up becoming sin because then we idolize that thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for me, when I was in high school, I was like youth group all-star. Like I was the popular kid at my church. I was one of the leaders of the youth group. Not that it wasn't because I was a good Christian by any means. I was just like outgoing. And so that's where I found my identity, was in my popularity at church, which on the outside seems like a good thing. I fooled a lot of people like, oh yeah, Nick's a good kid. He's a leader in the youth group. But really, I was there for my popularity. But in high school, like at my public high school, because none of my public high school friends went to youth group, went to church with me. So like there's just 2 sides of Nick. And I never really like gave God my school. I just showed up, played sports, failed tests, and left. It was like I never really gave that to God until really my senior year, where we're going to camp, and I had an opportunity to like work to pay for someone to go to camp. And so I did, and one of my buddies, his name I was Kenny, and I wanted him to come to camp with us. And this is like the first person I've ever like crossed a bridge between church and high school, and like my public high school. And so all I did was like work for him to go to camp for free. And then we invited him. I told him like the night before that he's coming to camp. And he's like, okay. And like we got him to go to camp, and God did the rest, really. And he accepted Christ at camp, and just like a really cool situation. But like my brain goes to, man, what if I gave God my school as a freshman?
Yeah.
You know, how would that have affected my grades, my relationships, and most importantly, really my relationship with God? Because I'd go to school, turn off my relationship with him, because I'd never let go of that to give it to God. And so, so I think when it comes to like this letting go thing, it's more than just giving up something, but it's you're moving it somewhere else, which is to God, which can be just as hard as letting go of something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say, I agree, like with you, Ashley, like with the control part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we put God in that genie role, and like with you, like, God, please don't let Nick get hurt. Well, and then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, God, I prayed about this. Why didn't you let it happen?
Yeah.
Why is my husband hurt right now? And I think a lot of times we suffer from like putting God in that genie role as opposed to putting him in God, like as God. And we talk to him as, I like to use that example a lot in our junior high, because I know I still suffer from it. Like something that Sarah and I have been praying for a while, and then like it doesn't happen. And it's like, well, why not? And it was like 3 days, 4 days later. And it's like, well, why hasn't this happened yet? Well, God doesn't work on our time.
Yeah.
Like he works on his time. And so that's something that has taken some getting used to.
Yeah.
Because we're so, especially in our culture now where we have everything. If I wanted to order some food right now, I can just get on my phone, order some food.
It'll be here by the time the podcast is done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah.
We should do that. He can jump in.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about?
What do you think about God?
Yeah, that's a good point,
think-
and it's
yeah.
a lifelong battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think the big key here is that, at least I feel like for me, and I feel like y'all would agree, when we're focused on the Lord and focused on pursuing our relationship with him, and not focused on the things that we want him to be a genie about, the big things in our life that we have control issues over, or whatever the situation is that you're having a hard time letting go, when you're not focused on those things and you focus on the Lord and who he is, that he's not a genie, that his ways are bigger than ours, and all those things, when you focus on him, those things that are hard to let go of, when you're focused on them, are so much easier to let go of when you focus on who God is and how big he is.
Yeah.
Because in reality, a lot of the time, like with Nick, I didn't want him to get hurt, but he just got stitches, and it's fine. It's not even the first time that I've taken him to get stitches. Like,
I'm basically Frankenstein. at
Yeah,
this
it's pretty
point.
much.
it's
at this
true.
point, yeah.
But it just seemed like such a big deal in that moment because that's what I was so focused on.
Yeah.
But then whenever I was able to come back like a day later and talk to the Lord with humility,
Yeah.
and realize how much bigger, it just really shouldn't have mattered that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing
when
how like God gives us perspective on
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good question.
All right, here's another one. How do you keep your mind clean in a dirty world?
Soap.
Dirty, filthy,
Yeah.
filthy world.
Yeah, it's dirty. I know. I'll answer this one real quick. So for me, I do social media cleanses regularly,
Yeah.
where so on my phone, like right now, the only two apps I have are Instagram and TikTok, and but before that, it was Facebook, it was Twitter, and I would go down like just rabbit holes, and like especially like in Twitter, like it's a dark place on that on that website. Like it's a terrible place, and it got to the point to where like it was, especially during COVID and stuff like that, like it was really like just depressing to see, and I just can't keep doing that. So for me, the way I keep my mind clean is like I just get that stuff off my phone, and the biggest the easiest way I do that, obviously I just delete it from my phone, but like I have Twitter on my iPad and have Facebook on my iPad, and so I have to like actually go to my iPad, which I don't carry with me all the time, and I have to like actively try to do that. And then by the time I like finally get to it, I'm like, I don't even really care anymore. So, like
Yeah.
that's been something that's worked for me in the
Yeah.
past.
That's a good like practical
Yeah.
thing for sure. Yeah, that's really good. Go ahead.
I think this is kind of a youth situation, but even for me, it just depends what I'm doing when I'm alone, or that sounds like I'm doing terrible things, but like playing games on my phone or going on Instagram or whatever those things are, watching TV shows or movies or whatever, and that's, you never know what exactly you're going to see sometimes on movies or whatever, but what I'm putting into my body when I'm choosing what I'm doing is a big part of that, of keeping my mind clean
Yeah.
and all that. I mean, there's going to be times when you have a conversation and you're just not ready for something to happen or whatever. But I think being mindful of what you're doing on your own time with your own freedom is going to equip you and prepare you for being able to handle those other moments well and not getting stuck in those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think also, like, I mean, you talked about the individual side, but I think that's one of the important things of community too. You know, having people around you that know,
Yeah.
like, hey, these are some of the things that affect my mind. You know, which will in turn affect your heart. And
Yeah.
so, I think just having those kind of honest conversations with people of like, hey, this is something I struggle with. Can you guys as fellow believers, you know, help me, you know, in this? And that, I think that's so important in the community, because then it does a couple things. The first thing it does, like, it continues to even out the playing field. There's
Yeah.
there's like this weird like freedom that I feel when I'm in a room with a bunch of dudes and we share like all of our, like, not all of our sins, but like we share the things that we struggle with, and then I realize, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
And we can, you know, I guarantee you that's not just one student asking that question,
Right.
but that student probably represents a lot of students of like, man, I'm surrounded with this stuff. How do I, you know,
Yeah.
keep
And
this
I don't
clean?
even want it to be like, because I know some of these we have names on them, but
Yeah.
I mean, for our private school kids and our public school, like it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
school you go to. And
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's the
true.
big thing, is that just because you go to a quote unquote private school or a
Yeah.
Christian school, like it doesn't change.
Yeah. You're still a human on this earth.
Yeah.
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 So
All that's there.
I'm yeah, I thought that one was a really interesting one, just because I mean it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't turn on the TV
Yeah.
without seeing something like dirty,
Yeah.
or you can't turn on Instagram or whatever, and like it's really hard. Like you
Yeah.
really have to try to censor yourself and censor what you watch and what you see.
Yeah.
And it's in our digital world now. Like for us growing up, it was a lot easier. You know, like we didn't really
True.
like we didn't.
We sound like those old people. We
Back
sound
in
like our
my
grandparents.
Day, back in my day, we didn't have the internet. That's right. We had AIM.
Oh, you just aged us like 20 extra years.
We
Thanks.
just lost all junior hires. Watching
We did.
this video.
But the good news is that, like, with that, I love our specific generation, because we've seen what it's like without technology,
Yeah.
with technology, and so like we're able to reference both sides of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is like, you know, back in our day, like we didn't really have any of that, you know, and then now we have everything we want at the touch of our finger.
Yeah. And technology as a whole isn't a bad thing.
No, it's not.
Phones is not a media, like that stuff is not a bad thing. I mean, all sin really is something good that God created that has been twisted.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm not saying get rid of your phone, like, you know, get rid of everything possible. Maybe a
Right.
really practical thing is pick one thing.
Yeah.
You know, is it a Netflix show that affects you, or is it Instagram, or is it something? Just pick one of those things and just start with that.
Yep.
But replace it with something else and see where that takes you. But bless you.
Thank you.
What was that? I thought you fell.
Wow.
All right.
These are good questions. Dang, junior hires.
Yeah.
Well done.
This one's from a seventh grade guy.
Mm-hmm.
How we could learn to love our enemies. How can we
I just want to start with saying loving and liking are not the same thing.
yeah.
That's a fair point. And
Yeah.
and I think I know what Ashley's saying by that. One of the things that we talked about as a married couple is that we both will always love each other, But there are days, sometimes more often than we would like, but there are days that she does not like me. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I know who me is.
Yep.
And me is dumb sometimes, most of the time. And so there are days where she doesn't like me, but I know that she loves me. And there are days that I don't like her. But
okay.
no, hold on, let me.
Not a whole day.
No, okay, yeah, moments. Well,
Thank you.
Let's use the word moment.
Thank you.
See, right now she doesn't like me.
I didn't mean to open this up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like,
I don't even know how he got here.
well, you said the difference between like liking and loving.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
I think I think that's kind of what the loving someone means, and I think one of the best things that the Bible talks about loving your enemy is just praying for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's like literally the first thing that they say on how to love your enemy. We'll start with praying for them. And what I love about that is you don't have to be in the same room as that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's I'm sure there's people in our life that, man, if we're even in the same room as them, like we're just angry or upset
Or distracted.
Distracted, yeah. And that can cause us to sin, right? And that can cause us to think terrible things or even say terrible or do terrible things. And I think Jesus knew what he was saying. He's like, well, pray for them. You don't have to be in the same room as them. And I think you said this before, Ashley. It's really hard to hate someone when you're praying for that person.
Yeah.
It's true. That's my life hack.
Yeah.
That's my most current life hack.
Yeah.
The person that drives you nuts the most, like the person that like you, they walk in the door and your blood just automatically starts boiling. Like
Yankee fans. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Those are the people you start with for sure. And when you realize how much your heart changes towards them after you start praying for them,
Yeah.
you really realize how strong God is and how important priorities and pursuing your relationship with him is, because it makes everything small.
Yeah.
Even whatever they do that drives you nuts.
Yeah. And God like transforms our eyes, seeing them not as how we saw them before, but how really God sees them.
Yeah.
And knowing that Jesus still died for that person too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also important and humbling, very humbling, but very important to remember, like the enemies that you have are nothing compared to the enemies that Jesus had, and we were those. We were at one point before Christ died on the cross, like we were God's enemy, and he still allowed his son to die on the cross for us. Like that's humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you said. It's really, really hard to hate somebody whenever you pray for them. Like that is the big thing that like I'm taking away from that. Like we can't stress that enough. Like try it. Just try it. Like try to really like,
I dare you.
oh, I hate this person, but I want to pray for him.
I
Okay,
dare
all right,
you.
I feel better now. Like that's the thing. It's so weird. It's that might be like the easiest answer that we can give. Like it's hard to hate somebody when you pray for them. And so, well, cool. All right. I have a few more. This one is a broad topic. It's why does God love us so much?
It's a good question.
That is actually a really good question, because I think we just come in with the assumption that God loves us.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're just like, we already assume that as the foundation. But maybe we never really asked the question, well, why?
Yeah.
Why does God love us so much?
That was from an 8th grade girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
Why did-
broad, but that's good.
Yeah. It's so weird too, because whenever you take a look at it, like the things that God has put up with from us,
you.
from
Wow.
us,
Just
like
kidding.
from us in general, like as people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, and the fact that like he still loves us, like that's why the old pastor that we had over at our Sarah and I's old church up in Dallas, whenever it was, and I know he got it from, I can't remember where he got it from, but there was an old, it was during Easter, and Easter is called the greatest love story ever told. And because you don't do what Jesus did if you don't really love somebody. Like you don't go through the anxiety, the pain, the suffering. You don't go through any of that if you don't really love somebody, if you don't really love people.
Yeah.
And so that to me is like, that in a nutshell shows like God's love for us, but it still doesn't explain why.
I think it's really important to remember again how big God is and what he's done, because even parents, like if you, Jonathan, you have kids, if you think about parents and their love for their children, like in the world sense, they created that child. Like that's your child that you created. You know, have raised them, but you knew them before they were born. The Bible tells us that God put us together in our mother's womb. Like he knew the hairs on our head. Like he created this earth knowing at some point that you were going to be on it. He's outside of time. He didn't have to wait to try and put you together or whatever. And if you can think about how much longer an eternity past he's known you, and he's been intentional about who you were going to be and who your parents were going to be and all these things, even the hard stuff in your life, like he's been so intentional to allow space for those things to happen and choices to be made. Like that's so much more time for him to love you before you even came on this earth.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, even in creation, you look at how unique he created mankind. Like with Adam, like he out from the dust and then breathing life into Adam, and then also with the uniqueness on how he created Eve, because God's God. Like he can just snap it. He can create however he wants to. He can just think it, like not even do that. Like he's so powerful. But like what you said, like the effort he put into it isn't necessarily because he had to, because this is the magic spell to create humans, but that's just the way he wanted to do it. I think he wanted to show the effort and intentionality behind human beings, and you know, the rib taking a piece of Adam to create Eve. Like there's intentionality here. So I think the why behind it is, I mean, we talk about how God is love, and I think God shows his love through creation. And, you know, I think it's easy to think that God is this off-distant, all-powerful being that doesn't really need love. And I don't think he needs love because he's still God, but he is love. Like that is the foundation of who God is. And so that's a good question.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you can answer it in a million different ways.
Yeah.
But why does God love? We know that he does.
Yeah.
But why? The question I ask is, how do you still love?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah. That might be the
That's a
bigger
follow-up
question.
question.
How on earth?
Yeah,
Because there are days
exactly.
I don't love myself, but he still loves me.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Great question.
All right, I got two more.
Sweet.
This one is from a 7th grade guy.
A lot of those.
Yeah. How to be a disciple and what it costs, and what does the Bible say specifically about a disciple? So we hear that word thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's a good question, like how to be a disciple and what it costs. And then what does the Bible say specifically about it? So
This is a really good Nick question, because he has spent a lot of time learning about discipleship and pursuing, not the idea of discipleship, but like pursuing how to create disciples that make disciples a lot. So I'm going to let him answer most of it, but I will tell you the price is a lot of time and a lot of patience, because it's not just like having all the right answers. It's not about, knowing everything or like being this big person that's perfect or has it figured out. Like, we're all imperfect and none of us really have it all figured out. We can lie to you or make you feel like that's true. It's not.
Yeah.
The biggest part for me is just existing, like being there, walking alongside with somebody in their life through the hard times, through the good times, and using every opportunity that you can to point them to Jesus and to encourage them in their walk with the Lord, on their own time with you. If they need to walk through a book, you do that. If they need you to give them some sort of thing on how to even start reading the Bible, because that's a big one.
Yeah.
Just literally walking beside them in life, which doesn't sound that daunting when you compare it to like being perfect and having all the answers. But when you do that, you have to be willing to give a lot of time, and not necessarily patience in the sense of like, oh, why haven't you figured this out? But patience in the sense of like, there are times when I don't want to just like, I'm tired. I'm physically tired, mentally tired. I don't want to do this, but that person needs me. So I have to be patient in the sense of like, I'm not the end all be all.
Yeah.
And this is something that they need. I need to be patient enough to give up my exhaustion of whatever and pursue this discipleship. But
Yeah.
Nick, you probably have a lot to say.
I think that's good. I mean, that's very human, like being present, relational. Like that's a huge thing. I think the discipleship is twofold, really threefold actually. Like you need to be discipled by really two beings or categories of things. The first is God. Like God has to be pouring into your life. You have to be in His Word, and that's so important, because if we just start discipling people, like if you just start discipling girls, and if John just starts discipling junior high boys, and I just start discipling high school boys, and I'm not really spending time in the Word or spending any time being poured into by God specifically, then I'm just a life coach. And the world doesn't need more life coaches, right? And what am I really pouring out? What am I really giving to the students or to whoever God has put in my life? And so I think first and foremost, it's spending time with God in prayer, in His Word. And when the student asks, what does the Bible specifically say about it? I mean, the verse that really comes to my mind, it's so plain. Jesus says in John 8:31 and 32, He says, "So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in Him, 'If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" Man, like abiding in the word, like living in the truth of Scripture is, and He didn't say that you have to understand it either.
Yeah.
Right? You just got to live in it. Just
Right.
let it be part of your daily rhythm, because you're spending the rest of your life getting the wisdom of God and understanding. And so that's the first part. The second part is someone older, like who is discipling you, who's pouring into you, Jonathan, like I know you have your spiritual parents, like that's an awesome thing. And
Shout out.
Yeah. And just, everyone, man, anyone who's a believer needs to have someone in their life, and it can be anyone. It can be your parents, it can be a friend, it can be whoever, but someone in your life that's intentionally pouring into you and giving you the wisdom that they're getting from God. And then the third part is, now who are you discipling? And it's, it doesn't have to be, a weekly coffee meeting with the same person at the same place, but it can be something as simple as it's someone at school that I see, and I just want them to know that I see them.
Yeah.
It can start something simple as that. I think about when I was in school, like we all know of someone who was always by themselves, or you pass between class periods every time, and they're, like, who is God putting in your path, to disciple? Because I think God wants us to, like, as we go, make disciples of all nations.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think God plans it to be a really natural thing of God saying, hey, really supernatural, where I'm going to put people in your path. And as long, if you're abiding in me, you'll see that I'm putting this person directly in your path, because I trust you to pour into them, because you've already trusted in me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, to me, like the basics of discipleship is that. And it's life changing.
Yeah.
It's crazy how God uses sinful, broken people like us in the lives of other people. And it's awesome.
Yeah. I know for me, and that's the thing, it doesn't even have to be in a church.
Yeah.
In a church setting.
Yeah.
Like,
does that have to be programmed?
No. Yeah. Like for me, it was being a waiter at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Let's go.
And that's how that's how it got started. Like it was literally that simple. And it just takes boldness from somebody to say, "Hey, you want to come over for dinner one night?" Or, "Hey, you want to go get some coffee?" And then from there, it's, "Hey, do you want to talk about Jesus, or do you know anything about the Bible?" Or just, and it was just that simple.
Yeah.
For at least for Sarah and myself, and my spiritual parents, Roy and Rose, they are, they are I've told the junior high kids, but they are like what I look at as a disciple, and what that is. It's like, they meet you where you are. Mm-hmm. Okay, so like they met me at Buffalo Wild Wings, and they met our basic need, which at that time for me and Sarah was food, a home cooked meal. And so
That's always my basic need.
So like they offered us food.
Yeah.
And for the people who they have met before us, like they were at a grocery store, and it's just like they were just talking.
Yeah.
They're just relational. They just want to be relational with people, and so
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. And I love actually how you were talking about how you know, it doesn't always mean like being nice to people. Or like it's just like being there with them, even when you don't want to. Like I know there's plenty of times when Jesus was like,
Oh,
I am
Go
so
away.
annoyed with you disciples, with you 12,
with
because
you, Peter.
got Peter specifically, like,
Poor
get away.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Sorry,
like,
Peter.
but it's like I've told you so many times, like it's not that hard. Like just follow me,
Yeah.
just listen to what I'm saying, and then whenever you don't, then it's like, well, what do you want? Like,
Yeah.
what more do you want from me?
Yeah.
So
It's like it's this weird thing where it's not that hard, but it's also one of the hardest things we can do.
right,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. If like the people that are being discipled by Jesus, like the literal Son of God, you can't get closer to the truth than that. Like he's
Yeah.
the walking truth. Like
Yeah.
that's that.
Yeah.
If they are I think a lot of times we think that we would have done better if we were them.
right, exactly.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I would have been so
not.
much better than Peter.
Yeah,
no,
no,
I wouldn't.
I probably would
Terrible.
have been Peter. Like,
Absolutely.
let's just be
Yeah.
honest about my personality. I probably would have been Peter. However, I just think that it's important to keep the perspective of like, because we're hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
especially in the Christian world and all the Christianese. And, you know, if you've been to church a lot for a long time and this isn't new to you, like everybody struggles. I just told you that I still struggle with giving things to the Lord, which seems elementary. And I have known the Lord for a while, but like those guys were with Jesus for what, 3.5 years?
Yeah.
And they never figured it out. And they were living life with him. They figured it out, pretty much figured it out after he died and left.
Yeah.
Like that's when the light bulb went off for them. So
Yeah.
you give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
You deserve it's fine.
And just because the
Grace.
light bulb went off doesn't mean that they were perfect by
Yeah.
any means.
No.
Right.
Because like Paul and Peter still had their issues, like after, like as they're planning churches, and like so they were still very much human. Like I think
Yeah.
we think that they became these discipleship robots, when in reality that it was, if anything, it got harder for them.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you see how they all died. And I like what you said, like about like none of us are perfect. And I think what truly brings us all together is our shortcomings, is our failures, is that, because that's what brought us all to Christ in the first place.
Yeah.
Is because we can't save ourselves, because we're fallen, and that's what brings us together. And I think that's really the knot that ties discipleship of we're two imperfect people, you know, that have been saved by a perfect God, and we're now made holy because of this perfect God. And I want to share experience with you, and I hope you share experience with someone else and kind of keep this chain going of the gospel, really.
And I think for the person who asked this and other people that are thinking it, these sound like really big ideas, and it sounds like I have to wait until I'm, you know, at least 18 or something like that to be able to do these things, because I can't just drive myself to somebody else's house and be there. And that's not true. Being there in prayer is a big deal, but I just like practical steps to get there, and realize how close you are to being there is just focus on pursuing your relationship with the Lord, because like Nick said, that's one of the disciples that you need. And be prayerful about seeing people around you that you need to disciple. He will put somebody in your path, like Nick said. He'll put somebody there that needs you to disciple them. But also be very prayerful about who is discipling you. If you don't have somebody that you feel like is discipling you and encouraging you and talking you through some of these things, be very prayerful about that. And if you feel like there's somebody that's out there that could be a good disciple for you, that you maybe haven't talked to about it or whatever, talk to them.
Yeah, ask them.
Ask them about it. Yeah. Those are things, if you want practical steps to feel like you can get there without waiting until you're 18 or waiting till whatever you think in your brain is like the time when you are going to be capable of doing these things, pursue God as your disciple, which means being in his word, pursuing the truth.
Yeah.
And then be prayerful about having somebody disciple you, but also be prayerful about seeing people that need somebody to disciple them, and God will open those doors.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. This is the last one.
Here we go.
And it came from an 8th grade boy and an 8th grade girl. The 8th grade boys, so our 8th grade boys group is unique, and They had every last one of them got a card. I'm pretty sure a few of them wrote something on their card and gave it, or their sticky note gave it back to me. But
Yeah.
this is the one that I got, and it said, "Girls."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I had one 8th grade girl who I'm sure you guys could figure out who it is. Asked the question: when dating a person, what is a healthy way to show love through Christianity? So it kind of goes. It's twofold.
Yeah.
It's girls, and then also
in general.
just in general, just like girls, and like I already know who wrote some of these down, and just by saying just girls, and then, but to that point, it's like, well, how do you once you pursue that girl or guy or whoever,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, how do you show love? How do you show love? Through being a Christian, through Christianity. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm going to say right off the bat, based off my experience, my first girlfriend I got the last day of my 8th grade year, and she was in my PE class. I liked her. I thought she was cute. So I was like, hey, you want to be my girlfriend? She's like, sure. No idea what that meant as a junior high student. I just know that we hold hands now. Like, I don't know. And then didn't see her at all in the summer. Not once.
That's healthy.
Great, healthy relationship.
For sure,
We
Dave.
went to the same high school, and goes back to the separation of church and like school. And then the first day of school, I'm like there, and one of her friends comes up to me and is like, hey, Nick, I'm going to just use the name Sarah, but like, hey, Nick, Sarah wants to say hi. And I was like, who's Sarah?
Oh my gosh, you're terrible. I've married a monster.
And then in my mind, I said that, but she can like tell I was confused and like, yeah, your girlfriend Sarah. And I was like, oh, I have a girlfriend. That's right. And like we went and I like saw her, and like it was like nothing like was missing. It was like, oh hi, what's up? I was like, gosh, like I love you, like whatever. And then, but the mistake of all this was we dated for
There's
like,
just one.
well, the big overarching mistake,
Oh, okay,
which
okay,
branched
cool,
off
cool.
into a bunch of little mistakes.
Uh-huh.
The
Okay.
big overarching mistake was, so we dated for 8 months. I never told my mom about this relationship. And here's the thing: it wasn't like my mom wasn't cool with me dating. It was the fact that I didn't tell her, the fact that I kept it a secret.
Yeah.
And the main reason why I think humans keep secrets is because we don't want people knowing certain things, but most likely that thing that we're keeping a secret, besides like our social security number and stuff like that, is a sin that we want to get away with. And so like,
Something that you're ashamed of.
yeah, so I mean, I would say, for junior high, I mean, just be very. It's hard. Like, if I were to go back and be an 8th grader again, I still probably wouldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't take my own advice from my future self.
Yeah.
But talking to your parents, and talking to your
I
friends,
wouldn't take advice from you either.
like going back to the discipleship thing, like talking to people about dating.
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest question that they'll ask you is, okay, that's great that you want to date. Why? Not that they're
Yeah.
questioning you, but they want you to be able to answer, well, why do you want to date this person at this age or whatever?
Yeah.
And I don't believe in certain age limits where you can
Right.
date. I think parents should establish that or whatever. But I think you being able to answer the question, like, why? Why do I want to go? Do I just want to date because everyone else is having girlfriends, boyfriends situations? Or is there like an actual good reason why? But to be able to answer that question yourself. And for me, I just did it because I knew that she liked me and everyone else had girlfriends and whatever. And so I was like, that was my why. And it was terrible.
Yeah.
Which is
All
why
right.
I didn't talk to my mom about it.
All right, lock it in right here.
Uh-oh.
Here's the deal. I married this one. Believe it or not, he's a good one.
You're lucky.
Okay?
Yeah.
He's a good one, even though it doesn't sound like it right now. But in 8th grade, probably wouldn't consider him a good one. Okay, keep that in mind. However,
Fair.
That's fair.
I will not argue that.
Yeah.
I think it's important, like Nick said, to have people in your life, again, a disciple, that you can talk to and knows you well enough to know when you're giving them the right answer versus what you're actually thinking.
Yeah.
Everyone has that person. Sometimes it's as easy as your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mom, for boys that are asking about girls, you have a mother. For the most,
Yeah.
yeah. Talk to your mom.
Yeah.
I know you think she's outdated. I know you think that she isn't I don't know, up to date with it. She was in junior high at one point. She probably has a story like Nick with some boy that forgot they were dating over summer.
Oh gosh.
She probably has some of these experiences, and she knows how girls want to be treated. She's a girl. I think sometimes it's hard to remember, like, I mean, anyway, I remember being a junior high girl and I would never ask my dad about boys, but that's because he would never let me date. So that's just different. But also, I think it's very important to remember dating is not the end all be all. Marriage is not the end all be all.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I know that, like, movies and shows and social media and all this stuff try and paint it as this amazing thing that if you don't have, you're missing out on.
Or there's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
Right,
like, that's so not true.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you think about, for the ones like high schoolers and stuff that have dated, the stress and just anxiety of, am I good enough? Like, all of the things, all the self-questioning, self-doubt, things that you go through in dating, and having to learn somebody's family, and just, it's a lot. Dating is a lot.
Yeah.
When you can, like, actually date.
Yeah.
And it's just, until you're ready to talk about marriage, I don't know how beneficial it can be. Honestly, if I'm just being honest. Like, I get that, like, you have a crush on somebody, you think they're cute, but that's really not the end all be all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're being prayerful and seeking the Lord and all the things, like, those things will come to light if you're being prayerful about that person and your relationship with them. But I think, like Nick said, the biggest thing is having people in your life that you can talk to.
Yeah, and a practical thing also is, instead of jumping straight to, like, exclusively
Yes.
dating someone, like, if you're a guy, I think there's a lot of benefit in actually being friends with girls.
Yes.
Like, just be friends with them. Like, establish that. And that way you'll learn that, okay, I can't say, do, or think, or whatever certain things around girls, because girls are wired different. Girls are built different. And so being able to learn, okay, well, here's what I should do, instead of, you know, like, when I'm hanging out with the guys, like, maybe I shouldn't make that joke when I'm hanging out with the girl, or, like, doing that. Like, I think that's a really beneficial thing to do, and vice versa. Girls to having friends that are guys, and it helps you be a more rounded person, just on a practical level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the second part of that question is, what's a healthy way to show love through Christianity? And, you know, that's one of those, like, it's like a weird question, because I feel like if we're showing love, like, we're doing what we wanted. Like, if we're showing God's love, then it's going to pour out naturally by showing love through Christianity anyways.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that part of it, you know, I wonder if it's more like, how do we love somebody in a Christian way? So, and that kind of goes back to your mind in a dirty world. Like, how do you go back to, how do you have a clean mind in a dirty world?
Yeah.
You know, like, all of these things are going to lead back to the Bible and to Jesus, but it's just how you go about pursuing that. You know, like, and it's like you said, like, are we pursuing it because all of my friends are dating, and I feel like an outcast if I don't, or do I actually really, like, care about this person?
Yeah.
You know, it's not, and for, obviously, Sarah and myself, like, we're, not your Sarah,
Yeah,
my Sarah.
my made-up Sarah. Yeah, I just realized that. I probably should have used a different name. That was just first random lady name that came to my mind.
But for, like, not everything's going to end out the way
boy.
that me and Sarah did, right?
Yeah.
Like, we met when we were 14 and 15 years old, and then we got married.
Yeah.
Not when we were 14 and 15. We got married.
But y'all didn't date that young. Y'all didn't date till high school, right?
That was high school time.
Oh,
that was
that just sounds so young.
I know. Well, we met. and
14
then-
is 8th grade.
Yeah. Well, so we met, and then we started dating whenever I was a junior. So I was
See.
16. She was 15.
Still.
Either way, it's still young.
My
It's
youth
still high
pastor, he met his wife when they were in junior high.
Dang.
Not every story ends up like that. And I think, and it's like you said,
Yeah.
like, from being, like, dramatized so much on TV and on social media and stuff like that, that is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And
It's not.
It's not. Like, I mean,
It's really not.
you know, like, and that's not saying, like, we don't enjoy being married to our spouses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just like,
There's
if-
something good there that God created.
Yeah, but if that's the only reason why you want to get married, is just to fit in or because you feel like you have to,
Yeah.
then you're not doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So
I feel like my reaction to this was that I don't love my husband. I very much love my husband. I am very happily married, and I 100% know if
Winning.
if marriage is going to work, it has to be with this knucklehead. And
take it.
I'm not knocking how much I love my husband. I just, in my mind, when I answer these questions, I'm reacting to how much importance I put on guys and them liking me in junior high, in high school, in college, and how much I felt like I needed their attention for my self-worth.
Yeah.
And that's where these reactions and like rolling my eyes and frustrations come from, because it was so important to me because of social media, college social media and like movies and TV shows and even like Disney movies. Y'all want to know how immature and stupid I was? When I turned 20, I had a mental breakdown because I wasn't dating anyone, and like all the Disney princesses when I was growing up were married by like 18 or 17, and I was like,
failure.
I know. And
Gosh.
how dumb is it that I was basing my life goals off of Disney princesses? But that's where I was.
Cinderella is goals.
Yeah. And then I turned 30 and I was fine, but like, whatever. I feel really dumb saying that out loud, but for the other people that are out there, that are the girls that are thinking that this is an end all be all and I have to have a boy's attention, I have to be able to say that I have a boyfriend or somebody likes me, has a crush on me, so that I have options, I guess. I don't even know what the situation is.
Yeah.
Also, I can admit I have daddy issues. It's fine. But the time and energy wasted on relationships and even non-relationships, like guys that I had crushes on that just don't matter, and not pursuing the Lord because I didn't want the Lord to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Because I knew if I talked to people that were disciples discipling me about it, there was no point in it.
Yeah.
And that I wasn't doing the right, like I was ashamed of it to a point that I didn't want to talk about. Anyways.
It's almost like after the fall, whenever, Eve ate the apple and then Adam, like they were hiding. Like it's almost like you're hiding from God, like your desire for like wanting a relationship. And it's like, and as silly as that sounds, like we're hiding what we want.
Yeah.
What God already knows, like we're hiding from it. But, like getting it, like being prayerful about it.
Yeah.
Prayerful about the person, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I know my father-in-law would tell me like they prayed for me, like not even knowing me, but like,
Wow.
and like my spiritual parents, like they prayed for their sons' wives, like whoever, like God put somebody in my son's life that will help lead them to you, or that will strengthen their relationship with you. Like that to me is powerful.
Yeah.
And like, my spiritual parents, their sons are Andrew and Armando. They both are married, have 2 kids, and they're thriving. Like it's great, like to see, like their marriage is good, and I think that comes with like just being prayerful about it.
Yeah.
Like you put these people in your life through prayer, and let God take care of the rest.
Prayer is such an easy answer, but it's so hard to remember and to
Yeah.
do.
Because it's so easy
Yeah.
Yep.
to do, it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
I think. But going back to the how do we love people in a Christian way, Jesus is the perfect example. He loved his disciples. He didn't have a wife on this earth or whatever, but he loved his disciples, and I think his example of how he loved others is exactly he was a servant first.
Yeah.
That's how he showed his love. He served them by washing their feet. He served them by being ever so patient.
That's a big one.
Yeah. He served them with his time, with his energy. Like his first step with love, it seems like in every story that I can think of off the top of my head, is always service. Yeah. His heart was the heart of a servant to those that he loved, and lucky for us, he loves all of us. Yeah. But I think that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about physical things that you can do to show somebody that you love them, besides just saying things or whatever, because, words can be hollow. I think if you really truly look at what Christ did in love, he was a servant even to the point of dying on a cross. Like serving others with patience and kindness and love in your heart the way he did is exactly, I think, what he's calling us to do as Christians who are loving others well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Hey, well, wow. The time flies when you're having fun, you know?
Seriously, right?
Jeez. Well, I am, so these were questions from middle school kids.
Wow.
And, the crazy part about all of that is, again, like 7th and 8th grade year old Jonathan and probably 7th and 8th grade year old Nick and probably 7th and 8th grade year old Ashley was not thinking about things like this,
Yeah.
And so that's encouraging to see. It's encouraging to hear. But
Yeah.
more importantly, I mean, for any parents that are watching or listening, like, this is what your kids are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's something
Or thinking about.
or thinking about. Like,
Yeah.
this is relevant to all of us. I mean, I'm sure there's high school students that are probably wondering the same thing and questioning the same thing. And so I think that this is a good reminder of, like, God's still here and present. And, like, we are here as disciplers to, like, help people get through these times and really just show, again, God's love through all of this. So, yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff, dude. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening. This is really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
I know you're on this side now.
I know. It's weird.
It's just Alan over there.
Shout out. Alan in the back.
What?
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. See you next time.
All right, see you.
Everybody's hands in.
Woo!
Can that be our new sign off? But y'all have to do it
No.
high pitch like that. I don't even think I said anything.
Nice.
See you later.